there, this is Griffin here from Old County Productions, coming to you with a pretty cool tutorial, pretty advanced, but that's okay. It'll be really good. So I have a composition here. It's just a 1920 by 1080p, 24 frames per second. Basically, this is a tutorial on how to make a wall basically just explode. So here it is. Now, to go about creating this effect, what you'll need is Adobe After Effects, and you'll need Action Essentials, and an optional extra would be NC Cinema's Gun Pack. And that's really good. I would highly suggest getting it anyway. It's great for smoke, because I don't really like the smoke hits in Action Essentials. So to get started, I'm just gonna show you the inspiration for this and where you can get some files for it. It's videocopilot.net, and we have here the crumble, the effect, procedural crumble. It's like that. That was the inspiration, and that is where I got some of the footage, like the background and some of the cracks around the bullet hole. So go ahead and download the project file, or if you would like, you can use anything from Google Images. It will not influence the effects in any way. It'll just have a different look. So I'm just going to go with this. I really like the look of the concrete. So basically, I'm going to pull in my picture of the concrete, and I'm just going to bring it to a different area. So here I have my concrete, and that's just going to be my background. So now what I need to do is I need to go about adding my effects to make chips of it go flying. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to title this background. So I'm going to title it background, and then I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to call this chips. Alright, so now our chips are going to be the chips, the pieces of the concrete that go flying when the bullet hits. So basically, to do this, I'm going to start off with the ellipse tool right here. So we're going to pick this ellipse tool, and we're going to go into our composition panel, and we're going to hit Alt, Control, and Shift. Sorry, we're going to click down, hit Alt, Control, and Shift, and then drag out. And so then you want to just create a perfect circle right here in the middle. Now what you gotta do is zoom in. Here I'm just going to change the color because I have it set just to be random. So I'm going to zoom in to something that contrasts. There we go. So I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to go to the pen tool effect right here, and I'm going to add some vertices. I think that's the plural for vertex. Yes, I believe it is. I'm going to add some extra vertices just to give this a slightly more random look. Alright, that's good. Now I'm going to pull on the effect Roughen Edges. So I bring that on. I'm going to just turn off the mask here. I bring that on, and I will solo the picture. And I'm just going to bring up the border, and I'm going to bring up the edge sharpness. So I'm doing like 2.7. That's what's working for me. So basically, it doesn't look like there's any changes here. So now to create the actual explosion, I'm going to use the shatter effect. So I'm just going to drag that on. I'm just going to zoom in here. Okay, So now I'm going to change the view to rendered, and I'm going to go into the shape panel, and I'm going to change from bricks to glass, and I'm going to bring the repetitions up to 100. Okay. Now I can keep the direction the same, and I'm going to go into the extrusion depth and change that to 0.15. So now you'll have something like that. That looks okay, but we want more. So right now I'm going to go into the Force 1, and I'm going to just click on this layer here. I'm going to go to Force 1, and I'm going to take this picker. I'm going to put this right in the very middle. It doesn't have to be exact of the bounding box. So now we have this. It's in the very center. Here, quick tip: if you hit Control-Shift-H, then you can get rid of all your bounding boxes. So now it starts to shatter, and then like the chips come flying out, and that's a start. I'm gonna bring up the strength. Okay, that's great. And you can play with the repetitions. I might bring the repetitions up a little bit. And you know, I haven't really messed with the origin much, but that you don't really need for this. Alright, so we've got this, and this looks good. It's a start. Here, I'm just gonna go to 3rd resolution. So once we have this, it's a good place to start. What we're gonna start doing is just layering our effects and just start getting the compositing, and we'll worry about blending them later. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to pull in a concrete hole. This is from the textures in Action Essentials. It's from the textures section. So basically what I'm gonna do first is I'm going to go to okay, so I'm just gonna, sorry about that, I'm gonna go blending mode, multiply, and then I'm going to pull on my curves effect, and I'm just gonna put that on, and I'm going to mess with my RGB until I kind of get rid of that fringe around it. Okay, so now we're just gonna bring this down. I'm going to turn the masks on, and then I'm going to view where our mask is. So now I'll be able to basically situate the bullet hole. And then I'm going to scale it up some. And I see there's a little bit too much sort of greenish blues, so I'm just going to bring down the greens just a little bit. I think it would be actually better to add a tint effect. Yeah, there we go. That's good. So now we have this. So now that we have this, what we want to do next is sort of set up our time and blend. So basically, we're going to start off with lighting. We're going to start off by making this lighting much more interesting. So we are going to just go layer, new, light. Okay, spotlight, intensity around 200, color, good. Everything is good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to grab our y-axis, and we're going to just pull that up. And then we're going to pull the point of interest down to here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make all of our layers down here, we're going to make them 3D. So I'm going to make that 3D. Actually, I'm not going to make the concrete hole 3D. I'm just going to make the chips. Actually, the chips don't need to be 3D. The only one I need to make 3D is the bottom one here. And to do that, I have to click here, but the screen recorder is not allowing that, which is not good. So, I will make it 3D and then I will come back to you. Alright, I apologize for that. So right now I'm just going to click on the light and I'm going to go AA for the light settings. Now I'm just going to pull this up. So first of all, I'm going to bring down the intensity. It's a little intense. Alright, to about 137%. I'm going to adjust the cone angle. You know, I'm going to bring the intensity back up a little bit. Okay, that's good. Now what I'm going to do, so I'm going to bring this back down, is I'm going to try to match the lighting for the chips. So, in the shatter effect, I'll zoom in here. In the shatter effect, what I can do is I can go down to lighting. I can go, here, I'll zoom in even more. Light type, first comp light. And now you can see that the chips blend with the scene much better and look overall much more realistic. Here is before and here is after. So it looks so much better, so much more realistic. Okay, so that's a good start. So now what we're gonna do after we have all this set up is we are going to add a shadow for the chips to make it, this will just make it look much more realistic. So what I'm gonna do is zoom out here, is I am going to go into the chips. I'm just gonna bring this up. So once I'm in the chips, I totally forgot what I was doing. Okay, so once I am within the chips area, what I want to do is duplicate the chips. So I'm going to change chips 2 to chips shadow. So I got a little unorganized, so I'm going to just change this to whole and just the light to light. Okay, so now I'm going to bring the chip shadow underneath the chips. And here I will go into the effects, generate, and fill. So now I bring in the fill, pull that onto chips shadow. Here I'm just going to close the shatter and rough and edges effect. And I'm going to change the fill to a nice black. Okay, so now that we have that here, you'll see, we just have it's just black. Alright, so now what I need to do is I need to go to CC Radial Fast Blur. And when you bring that on, when you bring the center, if you bring it up here, you'll see there's a shadow. So here's before and after. Before and after. There we go. Just adding to the realism. And you can bring up the amount if you want. I think it makes it a little more dramatic if you have a high amount, but actually what Andrew Kramer did, and I think this is a really great idea, is duplicate the radial fast blur effect, and the bottom one made the amount lower, and the top one made the amount higher. So this just fills it in a little bit more. And then the other one sort of adds a really cool sort of streaky lighting effect. So I kind of like it at 58. That's a nice compromise between the two. Alright, so now we have this. So basically, at this point, it doesn't look realistic, but it looks like it was done within a 3D program. So that's actually a really good start. That's something we can go off of for now, because 3D programs create realistic looking results. So next, what we're going to do is we're going to add elements that will enhance this realism, and we'll just give it a much more realistic effect, as if it's actually getting shot. So basically, I'm going to go into my project, and I'm going to bring in just a smoke. So I'm going to use from NC Cinema's Gun Pack, I'm going to use Shot Dial 4. And I'm just going to set the blending mode of this to screen. So I'll go blending mode screen. And I'm going to put it under the chips. I'm just going to drag this out. Okay, and I'm going to cut down the first frame or so. Oopsie daisy. So I'll call this smoke. Alright, so now we just have smoke on the hit. Okay, so that's a good start. It adds a certain realism. And I'm actually going to duplicate it, and I'm going to call it Smoke FG. And I'm going to put it above the chips and the hole. The hole should actually be under the chips. So I'm going to put it above everything, and I'm going to bring the opacity down a little bit to about 85%. So now we have this. Good start, but it's not quite there yet. But even at this point, if you add color grading and some other effects, you'll actually get something very, very good. So basically, now we have this, and what else can we add to enhance it? What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a powder hit 5 from Action Essentials, and I'll show you what this powder hit does. It basically it's sort of powder spilling, and that'll be great for right on the bullet hole. So I'm just going to bring this under everything except for the hole, the bullet hole. I'm basically going to I'm going to solo it, the light, the hole, and here, I'm just going to bring this up, and the background. Alright, so now I'm going to adjust some settings that'll make this look a little more realistic. So, here we have this, and it's a good start, but it's not quite there. As you can see, it looks a little bit flat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the effect Mesh Warp, and I'm just going to bring that onto the footage, and right here. Also, what I'm going to do, just for the sake of viewing it, I'm going to bring on a curves. I'm going to go to the alpha channel. I'm just going to boost that up, just for the sake of seeing. So I'm going to bring up the rows and the columns here. And I'm just going to push these pieces of the mesh in. And okay, and then I'm just gonna keyframe this distortion mesh, and I'm going to reset it. So now it's sort of keyframes. So that's actually a good start. I'm going to take off the curves effect, and I'm just going to do a small position keyframe for this. You don't have to be this precise, but it'll just yield better results. I wasn't this precise in my original example, and in my opinion, that still looked good. So I just have like that. Okay, that's good. I'm gonna unsolo these. Alright. Here's what we have now. Alright, so now let's look back on the original thing that I did. Let's see what other add-ons we have here. So I'm just gonna take off motion blur so we can see this a little bit better. And I have some more smoke, a few different types of particles. Okay, so now we have this. What you can do now is just add a little more smoke and stuff like that. But I'm not going to, because we're actually, you may not know it, but we're actually pretty much done. All we need to do is our color correction, our vignetting, maybe a few other adjustments to the lighting, and you'll be surprised how good it will look. Because I will show you, without the color correction, the letterboxing, and everything, this is what the original one looked like. Yeah, this is what the original one. Very similar. And one of the big things that sells the effect is the shake cam. Alright, so basically I'm going to come over here and I'm gonna just I'm gonna bring this up, and I'm just gonna add some space before the effect happens. So I'm going to highlight the smoke, the chips, the shadows, the powder hit, the hole, the smoke. Alright, and I'm gonna bring all this out. And so now it's still, and then boom, stuff goes on. Okay, that's good. Actually, what I'm gonna do, I'm going to darken the chips just a little bit. So I'm gonna go into the lighting, and I'm gonna bring the ambient light down just a teensy bit. It'll give it a little bit more distinction. It'll make it pop a little bit more. And I'm gonna go back into the shadow effect, and I'm actually going to bring the strength of the force up. Okay, so with that done, what we can do is add some of our color correction and our camera shake. So what I'm going to do for the camera shake, we'll start with that, is I will use this thing called Aftershake by Video Copilot. So if you go by videocopilot.net and you go, I think if you just type in Aftershake, you should, yeah, there we go, Aftershake. And if you just download the project file, you'll get a bunch of great After Effects presets for from Video Copilot for stuff like day to night conversions and tracking presets and shaky cam presets, which is one of my favorites there. So basically, now that I have that, it's called Aftershake. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go Layer, New, Null Object. So I'll create a new null object, and then I will go into my effects and presets and type in Aftershake _ null. That's the one I want. Here, I'll zoom in a little bit for you. For all of you that are hard of eyesight. Okay. So basically, I'm going to pull the Aftershake null onto the null, and I'll just call this shaky. And I'm just gonna call this fall off. Okay. So I'm gonna go into the shaky, and you'll see it's made the null shake. And that's actually really fast. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna slow it down. But first, I'm gonna just go like this. We're gonna highlight everything that we've done so far. Here, I'm just gonna take our pick whip and put it onto the shaky layer, and it'll parent everything to that layer. And that's what we want, because you'll see it shakes, and that's what we want. So now that we have our shakiness, and that's good. It's a little too fast in my opinion. So what I'm actually gonna do is I'm going to click on the shaky null, and you'll actually have these great presets here from that preset. I mean, you will not get, unless you're like a master of expressions, you will not get the same results from any other preset or any other thing you can do in After Effects other than actually getting your own shaky camera footage and applying that to a null. So this is great. I highly suggest that you get it. It's totally completely free, pretty small file, and it's just fantastic. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the speed down to 3. I'm going to bring the amount down to about 9. Then we just have something like this here. And then once the explosion occurs, so I'm going to say about here, we're going to create a keyframe for the speed and the amount. And over the next about 3 frames, we're going to bring this speed, I'm going to bring it up to about 10. I'm going to bring the amount up really quite high. And also what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale the null up. So it'll be a little bit bigger. So we'll have some space. Okay, and this will take a while to render. But you'll see it's really shaky. And then once it starts to descend, we're going to make the shakiness calm down. So we're going to click on the shaky null. Yeah, I'm just going to come down here. We're going to click on the shaky null, hit U for keyframes. And so now what we can do is we can create a keyframe at our desired point of chilling out. We're going to click these little diamonds here. I'm just going to bring this up. Click these little diamonds here, and by this point the speed will be back to 3. The amount will be all the way back down to 9, and it'll just proceed. Alright, great. I think it's a little I'm going to experiment with this a little bit. I think it's a little bit too fast, so I'm going to bring this down to 5, and not quite enough. So I'm going to bring the amount up at this point. So now it's like this. Oh wow, that's way too much. Let's put it at 170. And take them over here. Okay, that's pretty much good. I'm just gonna bring this to 4. It's a little too fast. And I don't like this jitter here. It's not, I don't think it looks good. So I'm just gonna here pull out this keyframe. So it looks like this. So now that we have our camera shakedown, that really adds to the effect. It makes it look much cooler. I think I'm going to zoom into this a little bit more. So I'm just going to take the null and I'm going to just bring it upwards, and just your explosion looks a little bit bigger. Alright, that's pretty good. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to add an adjustment layer, and I'm going to call this CC for color correction. So now I'm going to go and I'm going to take the curves filter, chuck it on, the hue saturation filter, chuck that on, and to sum everything up, the brightness and contrast filter. So very simple, but surprisingly powerful. So in the curves here, I'm just going to zoom in once more. In the curves here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a simple S curve. Adds contrast. I'm going to take the reds and I'm going to bring them down pretty low. And I'm going to sort of go like that. And I'm going to bring down our blues a little bit. So we've got a sort of yellowish, greenish kind of thing. Okay, so now in our hue saturation, I'm going to bring the saturation down to something like that. And then I'm going to boost the brightness a little bit and boost the contrast. Now we have something a little bit more grungy, a little bit more sort of like something's gonna explode and somebody's gonna say a really cheesy kill line or something, but whatever. Moving on, you see the dust spilling out of that. Looks really good. Alright, so now that we've got this, that pretty much sums it up. Another thing that is in that Video Copilot preset pack is an aspect ratio, couple aspect ratio presets, and those are great. I'm just gonna pull the 2.40 aspect ratio, and that makes it look a little bit more cinematic. And so that's pretty good, but the last effect that I'm going to add to this, and there's a reason that it's last, is the effect Force Motion Blur. So I'm going to zoom it out here. So basically, when I go to the CC Force Motion Blur effect, basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to add that to the chips. That's what I need to add it to. And this will just add motion blur. So I'll add this to the chips, and you'll see before and after it just adds motion blur, and it looks really good. It looks really sweet. And just to sum it all up, I'm gonna add a CC radial fast blur, and I'm gonna chuck that on the chips, set the center to the actual center, and bring the amount down to something around 20 or so, maybe, and then keyframe that effect. So at the start, it starts out a little bit and then it gets to a lot. So I'll just do that by going like this, hitting U on the chips, creating a new keyframe here. So I'm going to start off with the amount at 0. and then it goes up to something around 20, and it proceeds like that until it starts to slow down a little bit. And then I'm just going to create a keyframe here, and then over time I'm going to bring it down to 0. And that just basically adds some motion blur. And speaking of motion blur, I'm going to turn motion blur on for the composition.
Okay, I gotta run.
And then I'm just going to turn motion blur on for every. So I'm going to render this, and then I'll come back to you and I'll show you what it looks like. So basically I just rendered this, so now we can see it. And so much for being rendered. But there it is, and it looks cool. That's only at 3rd resolution. So now I'm just gonna show you how to make it look a little bit more pretty. By adding text to it, so you can make it like a motion graphics title. So this is very simple. I'm just gonna create a new text. I'm gonna say, don't with this wall. Okay, so I'm gonna size it up. So it's a good size. Just bring it up here, this dimension, and we've got that right there. It'll look terrible right now just because it's on a 3rd resolution. Everything will look terrible. So basically at this point I'm just going to parent it to the shaky layer, and I'm going to put it underneath the hole. So it looks like a hole was blasted in the letter. So now I'm just going to bring the smoke above the hole. I forgot to do that. Okay, so now you've got, goes like this, and then the wall gets width. And the wall does not like that. So basically that is it. That is a full advanced tutorial of this effect. If there's anything that's not clear, if there's anything you'd like me to cover, just leave it in the comments. Just the more comments and the more input I get, the more I'll learn and the more I'll be able to post and help people out. So here it is. Just get creative. You can add optical flares. You could do whatever you want. I'm just gonna render this out, do a few little adjustments, just experiment with it, and then I will post it up at the end of this video. Alright, thank you very much for watching, and I cannot stress how much I would appreciate some constructive criticism. It'll just be great to help me learn and come out with better material for you guys. And thank you for watching my first tutorial up on this channel. Like, subscribe, favorite, but most importantly, comment. Thank you very much. Goodbye.